Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my first impressions look on the brand new 361° Menace 2 Pro. So this is actually a brand new hoop shoe, and I actually didn't know about the Menace line because I never saw the original Menace, I guess, but because this is the Menace 2, right? But also this is the Pro version, so this is the Miro colorway, and I also have a silver and kind of like blue outsole colorway as well, which actually looks pretty dang nice. So as far as the price goes, it retails for 150 bucks, which is actually a pretty good price, especially for the tech that you're getting, and also it seems pretty dang well made, you know what I mean? So if you guys do want to cop, try to leave in the free link in the description box. If you do choose to get this shoe, it does help me out if you buy it through the free link in the description box. This shoe is actually made for guards, or actually for people that want a little bit more speed and responsiveness. It literally says push you past speed limits. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's get it started right off with the Tracciones, right? So I guess it's a little bit harder to see in this colorway, but in this colorway with the blue outsole, we can see like a herringbone traction pattern here in the forefoot. We have this kind of like weird shape, and it kind of circles out on itself, and we have a little bit of like a jagged line here in the heel, right? And it's actually not rubber. It's not a rubber outsole. They're using RPU, and it's kind of weird because RPU, they used to call it rigid polyurethane, but in their new tech specs for this shoe, actually they're calling it robust polyurethane, but I'm sure it's like the same thing pretty much, right? And yeah, polyurethane, if you guys didn't know, is pretty much like a plastic. So yeah, it's actually not rubber. And if you guys didn't know, the Joker 1 GT was also using this type of material, and as well as the BioSpeed BB, which both of those shoes had really good traction. And just from my first impressions, just trying these on my wood floors, they seem very good. It has a really nice hard stop, so I'm sure it's gonna have really nice traction on a clean court, right? Because, you know, RPU or this type of material that companies use for the outsole usually has a really good bite. And also, I was of course walking around in these all day. I got these in the morning today. It's nighttime now, and while I was walking around, you know, I was picking up a little bit of dust and dog hair, but it still seemed to be biting through that dust pretty dang well, which I was pretty dang happy and satisfied about. So I'm guessing it's gonna have pretty dang good dust performance as well. And also, durability, you should be fine. You know what I mean? Like the grooves are actually thick, deep, and also this material is pretty dang hard. So you should be fine on an outdoor court as well. And they're saying, you know, RPU is supposed to be a little bit more durable than most traditional rubber outsoles. So, and also this shoe has a nice little squeak. It's not super duper loud, not super high pitched as well, but it does have a nice little squeak. So if you like to have a nice little squeak, this shoe has got you covered. Of course, squeak has nothing to do with performance. So yeah, the traction is feeling really nice so far. And now moving on to the heel to toe transition, overall it does feel extremely smooth, right? So we have here in the heel a very nice curve shape, and also fully exposed midsole. And for the cushion, they're using CQT Extreme Foam, which I really like, right? So here in the heel, it just feels super smooth, very comfortable, which I like, right? And also in the forefoot, we do have a very curved shape. So just from the overall shape, it feels very smooth. Here in the heel, extremely smooth, you know, just like heel striking. And then also, it's extremely flexible, right? So it's weird because torsion support, like it does twist very easily, but then it has a little bit more of a, like it's a little bit harder to flex here in the forefoot, you know what I mean? It's just a tiny bit. I'm not saying it's hard at all to flex, I'm just saying it's a little bit stiffer this way than this way, you know what I mean? But as you guys can see, we do have a, what's supposed to be a P-backs plate, and starts here in the heel and extends all the way here into the forefoot with this kind of like circle shape. And yeah, torsion support doesn't seem the best. It's very flexible. However, it has a little bit of pop here in the forefoot. So overall, heel to toe transition does feel very smooth, and has a little bit of a springiness here in the forefoot. But I would say it's a little bit more on the flexible side of things, right? So there's the heel to toe transition. Moving on to the cushioning setup. The cushioning setup is really freaking nice, and I feel like for 150 bucks is pretty dang nice, right? It's very premium. So as far as the core feel goes, the core feel is really nice, right? But it's not as low to the ground as the Sabrina 3, right? So like the Sabrina 3, the Jaw 2, Sabrina 2, and stuff like that have one of the best core feels that you can get right now, right? It has amazing core feel. So the actual Menace 2 is a little bit higher up off the ground, just a tiny bit, but it still has really nice core core feel, right? But it has better overall cushion, it feels like so far, because the Sabrina 3, it has adequate cushion, but it's not anything amazing, you know what I mean? It has a nice little balance from the forefoot zoom in, it has a little bit of heel compression and stuff like that. And impact protection is pretty nice, you know what I mean? But it's not anything amazing, and it's not super duper comfortable. It's just overall, it's pretty comfortable, especially for how low to the ground you are, right? But here in the Menace 2 Pro, I feel like they wanted to give you a responsive feel and low to the ground feel, but still wanted to give you a nice cushion feel as well, right? So here in the heel, like I said, we have a nice bit of compression. So the heel compression feels very nice. That feels very comfortable, right? And just feeling it with my finger as well, it's an extremely soft foam. I really like how they didn't cage it, because with quick CQ Tech foam and CQT Extreme foam, they usually cage it a lot. So I wonder why they didn't cage it. Maybe because you still have very good core feel, right? So heel compression, very, very nice. Also, the underfoot cushion is really comfortable as well. I wouldn't say it's like absolutely amazing, especially comparing to like the Joker one, but it's still pretty dang comfortable, right? So also the step in comfort, right? So right when you put on the shoe, first of all, for the insole, we have just a regular foam insole, and it's not anything amazing because it's not super thick, but it adds to the step in comfort just a tiny bit. But of course, the main thing is the strobo board. They're using a soft mesh strobo board, and it's not stiff at all, it's not glued down or anything like that, and also it's full length, it's the entire footbed, right? So here in the heel, you have a nice bit of underfoot cushion right underneath your heel. You know, you can feel, or I can feel that compression. It's soft, it's comfortable. However, the forefoot gets a little bit more dead. You know, I would say it's a little bit more stiff in the forefoot. So I feel like that gives you a little bit more of a responsive, lower to the ground feel here in the forefoot, and in the heel, they give you a little bit more of a bouncier, softer feel with a nice bit of heel compression, right? So yeah, I actually really like it. Again, I don't think it's anything crazy, you know what I mean? Like if you want something crazy, like, I don't know, the Jordan 40, you know what I mean? Or the GT Hustle 3, then obviously you're not gonna get it here. But here in this shoe, I feel like they did a good amount of combination of making everything pretty nice, you know what I mean? So far, you know? But one thing I am a little bit worried about is the impact protection, because again, this is a very, very soft foam. So we'll have to see on hard impacts, hard heel strikes and stuff like that. But overall, the cushioning setup does feel very, very nice, right? So there's that. Moving on to the upper. So the upper, they're just using a mesh material, they say, right? And also they're using PP film. So the film pretty much is like a fuse overlay, right? And it does have a fuse overlay coming here into the toe box right here with this V shape, but the overall like mesh material is extremely thin. Like you guys can see just how thin it is, but it still also has a pretty nice like supportive and rigid feel. I mean, compared to, like, look at this, the Sabrina 3, it gives very, very easily. I mean, this is broken in, but it's just a really soft, like not super supportive feeling material, right? But here in the Menace 2 Pro, overall, it does have a little bit more of a supportive feel, you know, right? But still has a very minimal and thin feel as well. It just feels a little bit more glued down, and it feels like it has a little bit more structure to it than like the Sabrina 3 and the Sabrina 2, which I feel like, you know, it feels a little bit better here in the toe box if you like that, right? If you like a little bit more of a softer feel, I feel like the Sabrina 3 will be a little bit better, but for me, in my personal opinion, I feel like it lacks a little bit of support here in the Sabrinas, you know? And also you can see some panels here in the forefoot as well, like here in the toe box, so that'll be very, very good for the ventilation and airflow, which it has really good airflow, right? And then here in the midfoot, you know, it does get a little bit stiffer because, you know, this film or this overlay, but it's also like still really, really thin, right? And then for the tongue, we also have very minimal padding. Like literally on the inside of the tongue, there's no padding. The padding is on the outside, and the padding on the outside is for the laces pretty much, right? You can see the middle padding here as well. This kind of like oval shape, you know, so that's there so that when you tighten the laces, it doesn't hurt when you really crank down the laces. It doesn't really give you any type of like coziness, right? So it's just a really minimal feeling tongue. It's also a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And also here in the midfoot area, you can see that the material is see-through too, right? And also here in the ankle area, we have extremely minimal padding, like pretty much zero padding, you know what I mean? Like this is the least amount of padding that I've ever seen. It also cups in a little bit, so that does add to the heel lockdown just a little bit. But yeah, overall this material is extremely minimal. Like this, it just feels so freaking thin, like the entire upper, you know what I mean? Like some shoes, like for example, like the MB5, the material in the toe box is really thin, and then in the ankle area, it's like the tongue is pretty well padded and the ankle area is very well padded. But Here in this shoe, everything is minimal, everything is thin, you know what I mean? It feels pretty good for the quality though. Like, it doesn't feel cheap at all, but also like it feels pretty supportive and very minimal, which I think is a very good combination because usually, you know, when companies make a very minimal material, it lacks a little bit in the quality department. It feels a little cheap and also lacks in the durability department. But again, we'll have to see on once I break it in, we'll have to see on if it lacks that support and stuff like that. So there is the upper there. Moving on to the fit. So I'm a true to size and this shoe fits me perfectly like a glove. So yeah, my toes go very close to the edge of the shoe. And also here in the toe box is quite snug. You know, I wouldn't say it's super duper snug. Like for example, a shoe that's extremely snug right now in the toe box is the Lyrin 6, right? I can't even curl my toes up here, right? So it's an extremely snug fit here in the Lyrin 6. However, here in the Menace 2 Pro, it's like pretty snug when my foot is laying flat. However, I guess maybe this material is a little bit forgiving, so I can curl my toes up just a tiny bit, you know? But definitely not as much as the Sabrina 3 because this material here in the Sabrinas are extremely forgiving, very soft, right? So yeah, I would say here in the toe box is slightly snug, right? Also for the width, I would say it's slightly narrow as well. You know what I mean? It is squeezing the side of my foot just a tiny bit. Your typical kind of like normal basketball shoe from China, you know, like Chinese company shoe fit, you know, it's a pretty snug fit, but it's not like overly snug for me right now, which I like, you know what I mean? I feel like, you know, once I break it in, it's gonna get a little bit roomier here in the toe box as well. So if you want a nice snug fit, go true to size, but I feel like, you know, if you don't like that, then you should be fine going up half a size, right? So there is a fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown. So support and lockdown feels pretty dang good. So for lateral containment, we have a nice sidewall, right? So here in the forefoot, we have this plastic piece coming up acting as a sidewall. And also here in the midfoot as well, right? We have the rubber, we have a little bit of plastic. And then here in the heel, we have an internal TPU heel cannon, which is actually pretty stiff and also pretty large as well. You know what I mean? So lateral containment feels like it's going to be good. But overall, we'll have to see on if the upper is supportive enough for me. I feel like it will be because it does feel a little bit more rigid, a little bit more supportive than, you know, like the Sabrina 3. So I feel like it'll be adequate, you know what I mean? And also lateral stability feels like it'll be pretty good too. You know, you have a pretty nice wide base and also you are very low to the ground here in the forefoot. So overall support and lockdown, I mean, obviously it doesn't feel amazing in the shoe. It also has a really like nimble and flexible type of feel. However, it doesn't lack in support for me right now. It just has that kind of like ninja shoe type of feel, like, you know, the Sabrina 3, the Sabrina 2, the Jaw 2, you know, the Luca 4s, the Tatum 3s, were just really flexible and very nimble, right? So there's the support in lockdown there. Moving on to the weight. So they're saying this shoe is extremely freaking light. Like that's kind of like their main thing. It's extremely light, very minimal, and very quick. You know, you're supposed to feel very quick in the shoe. So I mean, like when I first got this, I was like, yo, this feels extremely lightweight. So let's check. 8.95, 9 ounces, guy. 9 ounces, that's insane. I feel like the only shoe that's lighter than this right now is the Ultralight 2025, which is like 8 point something. But I think this is number 2 right now, if I'm correct, you know what I mean, as far as the number weight goes. Let's check the other shoe. Yeah, 9 ounces, right? So yeah, that's the main thing about this shoe. You know what I mean? It feels extremely lightweight, extremely minimal, very flexible, very nimble feeling, you know, but also has a pretty nice bit of cushion so far as well. So yeah, we'll have to see on if this shoe is responsive though. Like, is it supportive enough? Does it have good traction? But you know, right now, so far, it does have nice traction. So yeah, there is the weight there. Moving on to the aesthetics, I actually really like it. You know, I especially like the Miro colorway. I just love the off-white or like the cream color, you know, and then the silver. It's kind of weird because I've never seen this logo. You know what I mean? The 361 logo is just the 3. Maybe this is a new logo. I'm not 100% sure, but I do like how it looks. It looks pretty dang good. So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, this shoe feels really freaking nice, but it has that really minimal guard-like shoe feel, right? So if you're into that and you like a very minimal, very lightweight shoe that also feels extremely flexible, then you'll really like this shoe. And I'm very excited to play in these, you know what I mean? So far, they feel really nice and premium on foot. So yeah, again, if you guys do want to cop, I'll try to leave a link in the description box, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.